Howdy, Disco Citizens. I'm Julia Marchese.
And I am Teri Gamble. Welcome to another fine episode of Horror X, a collaboration between the George A. Romero Foundation and our podcast, Horror Movie Survival Guide.
Horror X explores the femmes who make fright films fantasticorical and palavers with them about their experiences in film and horror.
Yes, today's guest, I'm so excited, is an actor, writer, director, and so much freaking more. You know her from her acting work in Heroes, Friday Night Lights, Dexter, one of our favorite bloody shows, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, The Real Housewives of Horror, The Stylist, and like so many more. And from the picket line last summer, oh my gosh, just a dear heart.
Epic. And she was also an accomplished director, including such films as Best Friends Forever, 12-Hour Shift, Torn Hearts, and shows like Pandora and Eastsiders, which she was nominated for a Daytime Emmy for.
She also writes comics, like including We Will Bury You, the Suicide Girls comic series, and the 2020 graphic novel Mary. Plus, she has her own successful long-running podcast. Excuse me, hold on. Reading glasses. Let's put them on. Yes.
She is able to do it all, Teri.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to talk to her today. Let's welcome Miss Brea Grant.
Yay!
Miss Brea Grant. That's a
Y'all
little dance for you.
That was so good. I know my history is so hard, and you did a really good job. That was really impressive. So thank you for a great intro.
You're really impressive. Like that is an insane amount of work that you've, done in your short lifetime. That's a lot of things. Like you
Thank
are
you.
kind of like, we're just like, I'm just going to do it all. And I respect that so much.
Thank you. I like being busy. I think that's I have to idle hands,
No, totally. But I'm so excited because it feels like you've lived like several little lifetimes within your lifetime. So I'm really excited to delve in and get to hear how they've all flowed together to make you who you are now.
Oh, thanks. Cool. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. So where did
start.
it all begin? How did you fall in love with, like, I guess, the arts, so to speak? And, we'll get into the horror arts, but just the arts in general. What was your first like love and where did that begin for you?
Yeah, I mean, what's so funny? I listen to a lot of like podcasts and I listen to stuff with people that I love. And I'm always like, I am interested in their origin story and like what they did and how they got to where they are and like what they liked in like junior high and preschool or whatever. And like telling it, I feel like I'm like, isn't this everyone's story? But anyway,
No.
I'll tell you.
It's not. It's yours.
I mean, I think I was always sort of interested in like artsy stuff. My dad, even though he was not professionally a writer, he did it on the side. He dabbled in writing. My grandmother, before I was born, was an actress. So like there was like that in my family line. And my dad wrote plays, and they did them at like the local theater. So I grew up in East Texas, in like a very small town. And I was in
which town?
It's called Marshall.
I know Marshall. My mom's from Longview.
Oh my God. Wow. I used to spend so much time at the Longview Mall. Like so much time at the Longview Mall. Wow.
Yeah. I've been there many times. So I know exactly where that is. Isn't that funny?
So it's
so don't discount that small place that you're from, because there's always somebody else there who's like,
and listen, if they are, they should hit me up because it's not a very big place. I always tell people, I'm like, if you're driving from Dallas to Shreveport, you'll pass right through it. Like you'll blink, you'll miss it, but it is there.
What was it like to watch your dad's plays on stage, to watch these things he had created?
Well, I was in a lot of them. So there would always be like a little girl role that he would, put me in. And so that was, I think, what like really sparked my interest.
Yeah, Dad.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Dad. And that was really fun. And then as I got older, I got more into music and I started playing in bands when I was in high school. I played in like some punk bands and wait,
what did you play in a punk band? You understand?
Don't skip over that.
Don't skip over that, because the amount of times that we on our podcast stop and make, like, we've made up so many at this point.
What were yours?
It's like vintage something, vintage anarchy or something.
I was in a few bands, but so basically my friends and I we all would go to all these punk shows, and we were like, we should start a band. And it was a bunch of other women and me, we were like, I was like 14, 15. And we were like, who wants to play what? So I learned to play drums. That was like, summer for,
that's so fucking punk rock. Yeah.
Yeah. it was fun. It was very like very much I don't know, informed a lot of my life choices. I feel like it kind of like made me leave this town I grew up in, and like just like kind of opened up the world for me, I think, a little bit, and kind of got me more into the arts, you know. And I think there is a really big correlation between like punk and horror. I think that there's a lot
Punk
there.
rock. Yep.
The horror I like best is the horror that feels punk, the horror that feels chaotic and anarchistic, and I like that.
Yeah. So I think that's how I kind of got into the art stuff side of things. I mean, I didn't really know anyone in film, and so it felt like such a like far stretch. So it took me a while to kind of like decide I wanted to move to LA and even pursue it. But I did. I went to college and graduate school, and then I moved to LA to be like, I just have to like give this a shot and see if it.
Where'd you go? Where'd you study?
I went to University of Texas. I have a master's degree in American Studies. Yeah,
American Studies. I don't.
What is that?
It's history. It's just history. Like history meets anthropology. Like it's kind of like what they would always say is like we study history, but not the wars or the presidents. So it was like not. It was like what was going on with
it like sociology, kind of like of America.
Yeah, sociology, anthropology. Like now, like micro histories I feel like are really big, and that's like a very like American studies thing to be like, I'm going to study the chairs that were around in World War II or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's like a very American studies thing.
Oh, that sounds very fascinating to me. The little tiny details are the ones that
I'm kind of obsessed with. That does that inform your filmmaking in any way? Because I feel like having that kind of research acumen would really be supporting in certain types of projects.
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean,
you can say no, you don't use it at all. It's okay.
I think it does. I think it's interesting. Like, I mean, when I first moved to LA, I was like, what am I doing? I have this master's degree. Like, this is like such a pointless thing to have. But then there was a lot I just learned in graduate school, I think, that helps, like, as far as just like, this is how you study. This is how you do things independently. Like, no one is like breathing down your throat to do all this stuff. You have to just like do it on your own. So I think there's that aspect of it. I did write one comic book set in like the teens, 20s era. So that was helpful for that. So yeah, there's definitely been stuff that like, but I don't know. I think the study of like human culture, like of culture, is something that I'm very interested in still and think about a lot, and I hopefully makes its way into like my movies.
So how did you start getting into horror? I mean, I don't know where to start. I don't know if we start with acting first, we start with directing first. We got so much to go through.
No, start with fangirl, I think. I mean, I was a fangirl, like, and I have like no shame about my fangirlness. I'm like the person who will go to people and be like, I love your movies, and like really like get in people's face.
We can't relate at all about that.
Nicest way possible, and like not a creature. Like, no, I leave, but I do try to like be like, hey, just so you know, I'm a fan. I mean, like I came up at like the age of horror movie. Like, there's such a wonderful time for horror movies in the 90s, and I was going to the $2 theater every weekend, which was how much movies cost in my hometown. I think it was $2, maybe $1.50, but there were 3 movie theater, like 3 little cinemas, and like we would go see all the movies, and it was like, Scream was playing, 28 Days Later was playing, like it was all these like great 90s movies that really like informed I think what I've done. So that was sort of where I started, and I've always been a fan and started reading.
Is there a movie? Can you pinpoint a movie that really was the one that kickstarted? You're like, oh, I like this.
I'm probably Scream. Scream is probably the one where I was like, oh, I like horror movies, but even like when I was a teenager, and we were like renting horror movies as teenagers at like slumber parties. So we would rent When a Stranger Calls and Clue. And I actually remember my friends and I getting a video camera and shooting When a Stranger Calls, like making it ourselves, and
where is that footage?
Maybe my mom has it. I don't know.
I have it. We got to unearth that. I would love.
I'm not in it though. I think I was actually directing it. I think that was I liked being both in front, behind the camera. I was like a bit of a ham, but I think I am not in that one. But anyway, so we would make
that. That's the seeds planted so early, right? That's amazing. That's what's going to come later.
Yeah, I guess so. Again, this is my thing where I start being like, didn't everyone do stuff like that with their friends?
No.
We did. Okay.
No.
You're like,
they did not.
Brea, shut up. Okay, great.
No, not shut up, but a lot of people didn't like at all. Like it's so cool.
It's amazing. Like that, and that's the thing. I think when it's your life, so it seems so normal to you, and then you look
Right.
back and you go, oh, okay, these are things that I didn't realize I was doing, and now it all makes sense. This kind of joy of directing. And I think, I'm, both sides of the camera as well, and I think that there's such a joy in that, and especially starting as an actor, and getting to know what it's like to be in front of the camera, and then using that, which you're able to do in your life, which is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely has helped me be a much better director, like already having experience working with actors, knowing how actors are thinking, but also just spending, I just spent a lot of time on sets, so much
Yeah.
time on sets that it's not a scary, weird place for me. I'm not walking on a set for the first time, like as a director, like that would be so horrifying. I've spent a lot of time doing other jobs.
Yeah, so you like learn the ropes from all the different sides. I love that. So you have a lot of other stuff on here. I feel like I like still am overwhelmed by like your resume here. So I guess out of everything that you do, like what's like your real, like, I don't know, your biggest passion, if there is one that's greater than the other out of all the things that you do that you want to talk about, or something that you don't get to talk about often, that you wish more people would ask you about?
Oh, great question. At this moment now, it's definitely leaned like more towards directing than
Mhm.
anything else. I still really love writing. I write every day. I'm very like uh disciplined about that, but
Oh,
I
wow.
How long do you write every day? Do you have like a set
till I
time? And
get to the point that I told myself I had to get to. It's usually like a
Okay.
page number or a rewrite or like a read, like, or yeah, it's a page
So
issue.
you're doing like a Stephen King style, like I sit down every day and I do this thing, and like this is how things get made.
Well, yeah, because I don't have another job. This is my job. So it's like, I can't believe people don't do that. Like when people are like, I don't write every day, I'm like, what do you do every day? Like, I have other stuff to do, but there's only so many times I can like clean out my fridge before before it's just too clean. So yeah, I writing and directing are definitely where I am at this moment.
So let's go to where you said you moved from Texas, you moved to LA, and then what happens? You get here, and then what?
And then I worked a lot of jobs. I waited tables. I worked at like one of those paint places where kids come and paint stuff. And
Color Me Mine?
I worked at a Color Me Mine. Yeah, I don't know. Do people know what that is? Like outside of LA,
Yeah.
is it a chain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I worked at the one in
they
Beverly
were a
Hills.
chain.
I worked at the one in Beverly Hills. That was my
Oof.
real introduction to Los Angeles.
Oh.
Yeah.
I worked at a boutique off and on for 20 years in West Hollywood, right near Beverly Hills border. So I feel your pain. And it's also a great and wonderful way to learn the city and the hierarchy of the city.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% what it is. Like watching the people who'd come in with their kids, or a lot of times the kids would come in with their nannies. There's just like all sorts of stuff going on. And yeah, I learned a lot. The only job that I ever I didn't give a 2-week notice. I just was like, I think I'm done. Like I just like left that job. Yeah, waited tables. I worked at a management company. I was a script reader for agencies. Like I did a lot of stuff. And then I ended up on Friday Night Lights, and that was like really life changing. Like not so changing. So I booked Friday Night Lights, and I was down back in Texas shooting. And my first day on set of Friday Night Lights was the first day of the writer's strike of 2008. So I was like, my life is changing. Like I was so excited, and like I was like, what's a writer's strike? I didn't know anything about the industry because I'd only been in LA for a couple years, and I wasn't like I just didn't know that many people in the industry, so everything was like new, and I was learning as I was going.
Mhm.
So I didn't know anything about the WGA. I didn't know anything, and so everyone was like, don't worry, these things never last long. But I flew back to LA and waited tables after that. So
Yeah, it
Wow.
lasted long.
a long time.
Yeah.
But then tell us about, you came here to make it happen, right? And then you did, right? So like what does that feel like?
Um, you know, I think there are people who are like, oh yeah, I made it happen. I don't feel like I have yet.
You Did you not hear your introduction? I mean, come on.
Which is why I probably write every day. I mean, it's a gradual process, right? There's not like a thing. Like, I mean, Friday Night Lights was definitely the thing that like I went from, I did go back and wait tables, and I was waiting tables, and people would come in and be like, actually, I say I waited tables. I should clarify. I packed to-go food. I never got to the point where I was actually waiting tables. I was like not that advanced. But people would come in and be like, "Aren't you on Friday Night Lights right now?" And I'm like, I am on Friday Night Lights right now. But because of that, I ended up on Heroes, and that was pretty life-changing. And Friday Night Lights just opened up doors for me. Like all of a sudden, I was in all these casting offices where before I had never, no one knew who I was, and I went from, just going in a random actor with like no resume to like, oh, I'm on like this show.
Zero to Heroes. Get it? See,
there you go. It's like, and here's the thing: we don't like have shows like this as much anymore. Like, there's a few. I mean, I think right now, like Baby Reindeer is one maybe, or like there ones that like we're all watching, like we were all watching Yellow Jackets for a little bit. You know what I mean? But that at the time was like everyone in LA was watching Friday Night Lights, and it was huge. It was just huge that for me to get on there with, the few credits that I had, which were like, like nothing, like 2 things. So I don't remember what your question was, but how did it feel? It felt okay. It did feel good. I will say getting on Heroes, I remember calling my dad at the time, and he'd always ask me about my auditions, and I would be like, I'm going on this one. They told me like that they had written the part kind of for me if I was available, because they had seen me on Friday Night. And I was like, if I book this, I think it might be like life-changing. And he was like, oh, okay. But my dad, like, he doesn't know anything. Like, he was like, that was just as life-changing as like a 2-liner on Law and Order to him. Like, he didn't care. Or no. And so that was the one where I remember when I booked it, I was like, okay, this could feel really different, and I can like not worry about working a day job for a little bit, and and see how it goes. Yeah, because that was another big show at the time too.
It was massive
for sure.
Yeah, I mean that ad campaign, I still remember that. So yeah.
So were you on set, watching the way that it was coming together as someone who's going to go forward and be behind the camera in a technical way?
At that time, no. I wish I had the foresight to do that. I think I was so when I moved to LA, I was like, I'm either going to be a producer or an actor, and I'm going to see which one takes off. Although I didn't really know what a producer did. So that was like
I still don't. I'm still not clear.
We're always trying to figure that out, and every producer has a different thing, and they all are kind of cagey about it. And I'm like, where do you get the money? Who do you talk to? What are you doing?
No, I don't know. I'm not a money producer. I'm a different kind of producer.
I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? Are you like Rick Rubin? Like, what's your like? Are you meditating? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So no, I mean, I think at the time I was just very focused on acting. I didn't have like that much training compared to a lot of people. So I was very nervous. I was very, pretty unsure of myself. I remember like one of my first days on Heroes, or I was, when I'm nervous, I like mess with my hands, and I had messed with my hands so much, I'd given myself, I made my fingers hurt because I was so nervous to be there. Cause I was just like, what am I doing on this show? But I learned a lot being on that show, because after a while I was on it for like the better part of a year, like maybe 8 months or something. And, that's a lot of information. Like that's a lot of like getting to know what it's like on set, what like, what is okay, what isn't okay, like where, what, everything. Like, I mean, I remember the first day I was like, where do I go to the bathroom? Like, cause it was just like that kind of question I didn't even know. And they're like, you have a trailer. I'm like, what's a trailer? Like, there was just like, everything was very confusing.
Wow.
And like just learning all of that, I think had to come first. And it wasn't until I started, on Dexter was when I started to get a little bit more interested in the behind the scenes stuff, and doing a lot of small movies. And I was like, oh, doing these small movies kind of feels like approachable, and like I kind of know what directors do, and I kind of know how to work with people, and I think maybe I could do that.
Yeah, and you did. So let's get into that. So now it was Best Friend Forever, your first feature. Did you do shorts before that?
No, you would think you would start there, but no, I started with a feature.
You're ambitious.
Yes.
Go big or go home.
We had a different director. We had a director team on board, and they ended up dropping out because we got that movie. We thought we had money for the movie. The money fell out. And they were like, look, we can't make a movie for this cheap. And I was like, you know who can? Me. I can, because I don't need to be paid and I can just make the movie. So yeah, I kind of just jumped in.
That's fucking amazing. I would like to hear about what that was like for you. Like
Yeah.
you're already taking on a lead role, right? And you've written it as well. So this is like a lot of hats.
Yeah, but acting was like secondhand at that point, right? Like that was like I had just spent so much time being on these sets for like really long hours. Like Heroes was like it was a grind. Like I mean, it was the days were 14 hours minimum. Like it was a lot, and it was very much like hold your feet to the fire. Like you have to come in and be very good at this. So I just got really good at like knowing how to do stuff. Like acting felt like just like it felt very easy at that point. So directing was the scary thing, but I had a good team. I had a really great DP. I had like people backing me up. I mean, there were a lot of mistakes that I made, things that like I would definitely do different now. I was like, I'm going to shoot on film, which I did. I'm going to shoot on location in West Texas, which we did. So there's like a lot of things choices I made that now I would be like, not in a million years.
But I'm a big proponent for film, so I would like to back up and talk about that, because that is amazing. You should, I mean, and it looks incredible, right? It gives it such life. So talk about that decision.
We shot on 16. Well, I had this theory that because I didn't know that much about making movies, I should just do something that I know looks great, and I love the look of 16. So that was why we chose to do it. It was a problem though, because we couldn't watch back. We couldn't watch dailies. Like there's a lot going, like trying to figure all that out, and then we had to like ship. We were in the middle of nowhere, so we had to like drive to a town and like ship stuff off so we could actually.
Wasn't that terrifying a little bit too? Being like, here's our baby, we're gonna put it in the mail, and like, here you go, and maybe
horrifying. I have like some horror stories about that where like someone who was supposed to take it, like left it in the back of their car for days instead of taking it in Texas in the sun. We also
did you lose some pieces of it? Lose some footage?
No, it was okay. It ended up being
okay. Sorry, I'm like all worried for it. I was like, oh no, there's
there were a lot of like things like that where it was pretty harrowing, but we got through it and made it, and it was very hard. And after that I was like, maybe I don't want to be a director. This was very hard. And then eventually came back around.
And what do you like about directing?
Okay, so I was in a cab the other day, and there was I was in New Orleans, and the guy driving me heard me on the phone, and I hung up, and he was like, "Oh, are you in the film industry?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And he's like, "Oh, are you an actress?" And I was like, "No, I mean, I used to be. Now I'm a director." And he was like, "Oh, why would you want to be a director instead of an actress?" And by the way, this is a horrible thing to say, but I was like, "Well, why be an angel when you could play God?" And he was like, "Oh, is that what people say?" And I was like, "No, I know one person who did say that to me once, and that kind of like stuck with me."
Yes.
I mean, I think I'm a little bossy, so I think that helps. This is like I can lean more into it. I can like have a little bit more control. As an actor, you're kind of just like waiting for the phone to ring. And I can tell stories that I want to tell, like that aspect of it. As an actor, again, you're like sent stuff, and like you have to be like, I'm going to do this because someone else wants to do it. And this, I can like shepherd things along and make this stuff I want to make. Also, like, I don't know. I just like felt like I was getting to the point where I liked acting, but I wanted to sort of try something else.
Yeah, the locus of control. I think that's very appealing. Honestly, I have my eye on that at some point. People are always like, you should do that. I was like, yeah, I will. I will definitely. But it's just like, I don't know about a movie, but I will direct a play or something. That's always like been on my mind. But
that's
there is that thing where you're a little.
I want to direct. I want to direct a play. That's on my goal list right now, is to direct a play. That's like,
if money was no object, what would be the dream production that you would put on?
I'm not going to tell you because I'm trying to make it happen right now. But I will get back to you. Like, I will get back to you. But I will tell you it's a musical.
I was going to be like, can I audition for it? I sing. I'm ready.
You sing?
Yes, of course. I have an MFA in theater. I'm a music theater person. I'm a big.
Are you in LA? You both?
Yes.
You both sing?
Yeah.
Well, let me hear a bar.
Oh my gosh, what do
Oh.
you want? What do you want? What do you want? I
Wait,
was
what's
like,
your favorite musical theater? What's your favorite
I'm
music?
like, maybe this time I'll be lucky. Maybe this
Oh, hey!
time he'll stay. I
Wow.
love Cabaret is my favorite musical of all time, movie musical. And Singing in the Rain, of course, because that was the one that's my gateway drug. But
It's
no,
so
I'm
good.
obsessed. My friends always tell me I should teach a music theater class. I love it, love it, love it. Just
I
went
I
to Funny Girl last night here at the Amundsen with one of my
Oh, you
besties.
did? Oh my god.
Mhm.
I love it was my dream as an actress to be in a musical, and at some point I was like, I don't sing well enough to be in a musical. Like I like singing. I don't dance, I don't sing. Um,
You act well enough to be in a musical. I think really good actors actually make really good, you can still do it. Like I think some of our like one of my favorite things is Mamma Mia, and one of the biggest hits. Those people are not really singers in that movie, but that movie is so good because it's got such great heart and great music.
Yeah.
And so we can
Yeah.
make
well,
it happen.
So Teri
I
and I met. We went to college together in England studying theater.
oh my
So
god.
We met on the airplane sitting next to each other on our way to our year abroad in England.
so we
Wow.
can.
So you're like
So we
sleeping on each
performed.
other's shoulders, like you were
Yeah, best
You
friends
got
since
the plane.
1999.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so
Yeah.
nice. So anyway, I don't think I'm gonna be in a musical, but I kind of want to direct one. So
Great.
Okay, yeah. Sweeney Todd is my dream, is my
oh
favorite.
great.
That is
Oh,
that
great.
is the one that
That's
I
so
would
fun.
love
Mrs.
to.
Lovett here, and I want to be Sweeney, so we're just gonna do it,
There
I
you
think,
go.
at some
Wow,
point.
I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm
we
We
here.
did that for Halloween.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Wow, I love
It was
that.
fun. We went to the Magic Castle. It was a great night out. But less about us, more about you. So I want to get into, I guess, some of your favorite like collaborators. Who's the favorite people that you've worked with through your career, or who do you keep coming back to and that you collaborated with multiple times? I feel like we might have a hint on some of these people, but I'd like to hear who they are from your mouth.
Oh, I'm curious who you think because I'm like drawing a blank. I mean, there's a few people. I mean, I wrote a movie called Lucky that I'm in that Natasha Kermani directed, and that was a really great experience. And we have other stuff we're developing, which is
Oh,
exciting. And I have actors that I like as a director to work with. Like I just call the same people over. If I like never had to do an audition, like hold an audition ever again, I'd be stoked because I just want the people I like and that I want to hang out with to come in, like be on my sets because they're
because
nice.
working with friends is the best.
Yeah,
It's the
we
best.
get
It's the
it.
best. And like even if we met on a set, it's just like I know you're nice and cool and like fun to be around and you pull it off, like that's all I really want. So like I kind of call the same actors over and over again. So there's like a lot of those, or at least a few.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but I've had like such amazing. I feel like I've been just really fortunate. I've been directed by amazing people. Like Rob Zombie is amazing. Jill Six directed me. She's amazing.
We
Natasha's
love
amazing.
her.
Yeah, so good. I mean, like, there's just all these great people that I've worked with who I would work with again in a heartbeat. Because, if you're cool under fire on a set, which is
It's the most
really hard,
important, right? Yeah.
then it's like, oh yeah, we're friends. We're friends. Yeah.
You've gone through the fire together.
We're
Absolutely.
together,
What's it
exactly.
like working with Rob Zombie? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I'm very curious because
Oh yeah.
I find his stuff very challenging and like creepy and wonderful. So I'm just curious what it's like to work on that kind of a set.
That might be like 3 things to describe him as a person. No, I'm just kidding. You know what? I remember him being very lovely. Like my audition process for that was all on tape, which this was like before we did that. Like this was all like
Yeah.
I went into a casting office a few times, but like I never met him in person before I was on set or before I was in prep because we did get to do rehearsal, which was really fun.
That's great.
But it was great. I mean, I was doing rehearsal with, amazing actors with Scout and Daniel Harris and Angela Trimber, who's amazing. And we were all got to work stuff out with Rob, who's just like very encouraging, very much like wanted us to like do our own thing, like bring ourselves to our characters. Like my character, I was like, oh, she's vegan. She has like vegan tattoos. And like, I was like, he was very encouraged. Like none of that was in the script, but he really encouraged us to like do that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's something I've really taken from as a director. I try to take things that I think are really, helpful. And he, something I definitely have taken from him. He also was like on set, very involved in like every aspect. Like he made sure that the production design was great. Like he was just very like hands-on in a way that I think just, a real artist, like a real artist. I felt like, and not scared of anything. And that's something I really appreciate it. It was a great set. It was a wonderful set to be on. Everyone was so nice, super welcoming, because that's a scary thing to do, to be in a Halloween movie. Like that's like
an iconic franchise that you're a part of and creating additional. Yeah, it's a lot.
And I had done like a couple indie horrors, but like I don't even know if most of those even saw the light of day. I don't know if they ever even came out. So that was like my first real experience with like being on set and like seeing all of like the blood and guts and like all of it out there, and that was very eye-opening as well.
The good stuff, the gore.
Yeah, we love
we're
it.
into it. I mean, the artistry
on his face.
Right, the artistry of the effects work, right, is like really what we look at when we go, the practical effects is near and dear to the heart.
Yeah, and I remember the first night I got there, it was like nights. That was mostly night shoots, that set. It was night, and Scout was doing the scene where she's I don't know how well you remember the movie, but it opens like in a hospital the same way that the original second one opens, but it turns out it's all, she's like walking down the street and she's like has to rip off like a fingernail or something. And I was watching them do that effect, and I was just like, I have entered a new world. Like this is a new world, because we had effects on the shows I worked on, but nothing like that. And the Rob Zombie movie is like, come here, let me pour this bucket of blood on your head because you are going to be covered. Like there's a scene where Daniel Harris is just like literally head to toe, like in blood, which I think is where she prefers to be. Like that is, I
feel the same. It's like my natural state. I was like, if I could be covered in a bucket of blood of all times, I would be very happy.
Julia's always waiting to be doused. It's it's a special thing. And I
listen, more power to y'all. This is the part where I started being like, maybe
I'm gonna direct.
I want to be sticky and covered in like. I'm like in that movie. I'm sticky for days in a bustier, and I was like, I love sweatpants, and like put me in a parka and like let me have clean hair.
But you have plenty of effects on your movies. So 12-Hour Shift has a lot of blood. Torn Hearts has a lot of blood. So tell us about that and working with how you decide what's going to look like.
Yeah, well, 12-Hour Shift was very small, like not much bigger than Best Friends Forever, like very shoestring. And I got super lucky because Angela Bettis and David Arquette were in it. So that was like very nerve-wracking for me as a director, but like I was very excited, and I had to really convince Angela Bettis that it was not a straight-up horror movie, because she was like, I don't know about horror. And I was like, it's a comedy. And she came on board, which is very, very nice of her, and was willing to get bloody. But mostly, I think most of the blood on that one went on Chloe Fernworth, who also loves it and would do anything. So that was great, and she was thrilled to be there. And she's in the new Maxine movie. Just want to throw that
out. Oh, cool.
She's in the trailer briefly dead, but I know she's like,
oh my God, I'm so excited for that movie.
And she's one of the most gracious actors I've ever worked with. Like just her and Angela Bettis and Nikia Gambi-Turner. Sorry, my brain is not working. Them three, like in 12-Hour Shift, they were such a joy to work with, and the three of them all got along. And it was just like, for me, the most wonderful place to be is like, I'm just surrounded by these really nice women who are just getting along, and they're all funny, and they all want to be here, and they're like supporting this weird movie I wrote. Anyway, I forgot what you said. Oh, effects. We didn't have a special effects person on that movie, so it was very much like what we could get done. Bless our makeup artist who came in and like picked it up and like, helped out and made things as gory as we could. But it was a lot of us like kind of figuring it out in the moment, because we just knew what we could get and what we couldn't get. So I think that's part of like being a low budget filmmaker, is that you're like, what can we afford to do? What should we not see because it's not going to totally play? Because we had some stuff we tried to shoot for that one where she's like ripping into a guy's body, and it just like didn't work. So we use what we can.
I would like to hear about the creation of Spurt Soda. Where did that come from?
Oh my God. We had a really fun, so we had a couple people working on production design. Again, this was such a small movie. Whatever you think it is, like whatever size of the crew you think it is, divide it by 4. It was like, our guy was literally the guy like laying in the bed as the brother, like that. That's how small we were. But Spurt Soda was just our production designer had like a person coming and doing like graphics, and he was like, what if it was called Spurt? And we're like, great, wonderful. Like that, it couldn't be any sort of brand name, and that was something
right.
but I think it's so funny.
The name is great.
Yeah.
And how did you because David Arquette produced the movie as well. So how did you meet him and the script come to him?
I had directed a short film called Megan 26 that we did a couple festivals with, and my producers on that were this company called HCT. I always say it backwards. HCT. And they were like, we know David Arquette. If you ever had a movie you thought he might be good in, send it to us. And I was like, I do have this random movie that takes place in a hospital in the 90s. And he was like, yeah, okay. He was like, do you want another wrestler to come do it? Like, what do you want me to do? It was very casual. So we only had him for like a couple of days because his wrestling tour, is it a tour? I don't know. He was wrestling at the time. But he was great. He showed up and was very nice, very gracious with his time.
He's such a sweetie. Yeah.
He's really great and very dedicated and just wants things to be as great as possible, but also did runs to Walmart to get snacks. So that was very nice.
He's
very
nice. One of the nicest people I think out there, and just so kind. He was he's on Mrs. Davis as well. The Nun show I got to be on, and so
I watched that show. I loved Mrs. Davis. Are you on that show?
Yeah, I'm the only Black nun who speaks in episode 1.
Oh, okay. Of course. Yes, great. That show was so good in a way that I wish we made more weird shows like that.
It was super weird
shows. It was not what I expected at all, and I loved that show.
But I met David in the 90s when he was doing Frankenfurter at the Tiffany Theater off of Sunset Boulevard. Wonderful. So I saw him a lot, and so I have a lot of cute pictures with him and his whole crew and all his friends that came to see him back in the day. So I've known him off and on for a long time, but I also have a lot of friends who are in the clown community because that's his other thing right now. So
yeah, he just dressed up for Bob Baker Day.
Yeah, because he has the rights to Bozo the Clown. Yeah. So anywho, big David fan. So that's freaking awesome. We love that and love him. And I love to hear that he went and got you snacks because that sounds exactly like what he would do. Yeah.
Very nice.
Will you tell us about the film that you have that's in the festival run right now?
Yeah, well, yes. So I did a short film during the strike last year because which not during the actor strike, during the writer strike, because I am WGA, but I'm not a studio, so I'm allowed to make my own shorts.
Because you're independent.
Yeah.
Independent.
Yeah. I mean, it was me and my friends. I've said that a few times, and I realized that it may sound weird that I was working during the strike, but I was also going to picket lines.
I got to make some independent stuff during the strike too. I think just anything that was independent or A24 was okay, A-okay. So it's okay.
And people got waivers to make stuff as long as they were going to agree to whatever we agreed on at the end, and that was great too. That was the point. But I made a little short that is about multi-level marketing. It's like a horror thing.
Yes. I think I've seen this trailer. Is Anastasia in this one too?
Yes. I don't know if we have a trailer, but maybe we do. I don't know.
No,
but
there is a little clip I saw because I listened to Roberta Blevins' podcast, the Anti-MLM podcast, and they talked about it.
What?
They gave you some love on it. Trust. It's a world that I'm very versed in because I love cults and I love MLM, anti-MLM stuff. And I saw this thing, heard about it, and I was like, yep. And then I saw your name.
I will send you all a link if you would like to see it because it's playing festivals and it's a short. So it's always that weird thing of I don't know how people will ever get to see it unless they're in a place where it's playing, except that we're in the process of making it part of, should I say this? Whatever, it's fine. Part of an anthology. So it'll be the first section of an anthology.
Yes. Okay, now I want to make something to go in this anthology. Let's make something. Oh my God.
Listen, if y'all are available, let me know. But yeah, so it's a leggings MLM, and then this one.
No, I know. And I have some of those leggings, maybe.
Leggings?
Yeah.
It's okay. One of my friends, I know one of the girls who was in the documentary probably that you may have seen about another leggings company. She's a bartender here in LA and also a designer, but I knew her because I ran karaoke in a bar that she worked at. And I was like, oh, wow, you were the designer for all of those leggings.
Wow. Oh, I remember that girl. I remember her from the documentary.
She's a dear heart and she's beautiful and she lives here in LA too. I can happily introduce you. She'd probably be so excited to watch this weird little horror about her life a little bit.
I would love to show it to her. And I got to hang with all my friends on it. So Anastasia Washington's in it, Barbara Grant's in it. Barbara and I have done, oh my gosh, we've been in 3 or 4 different movies together.
She's so incredible, isn't she?
I love her.
And
how is she still the most beautiful person on the planet? She inside and out. I cannot.
I like have theories about this, but my major theory is that she's happy.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
she's
good.
happy. She's doing what she wants to be doing. She has like a loving family. Like she actually is like, I think there's this myth that to be an artist, you need to be extremely, you know, sad and tortured. And you don't have, you can just like actually enjoy your work. And like she likes doing what she's doing. And she
She
seems
picks
like a
such
happy
great
person.
projects.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my theory, is that she's just a happy person. But I don't know. Or, you know, whatever, maybe, you know,
We thought vampire for a long while,
yeah,
but I like
I was
happy
gonna say Blood
person.
of Virgins, and then I was gonna say
Yeah.
vampire.
Yeah.
She's not Bathory. She's too kind. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, would like to see her play that. Should we make
In a heartbeat.
that? Be very good. Mhm.
Yes, definitely. So let's talk about, we haven't talked about your comic work. How did that all come about? Because that's so cool.
Yeah. You know, I've been a comic fan. I was a comic fan from, I mean, in college, I started reading comics. I think a lot of people started a lot younger than that, but I think women are not often handed comics like as little girls. So I got into it a little bit later than a lot of people, but I love comics. I'm a big fan. And when I was on Heroes, my brother and I were like, let's write something together. Cause I had a lot of downtime because it was just took a long time to shoot that show. And I was like, what if we did a comic? And I had made friends with this artist, Ben Templesmith, who I was a big fan of at the time. And he was like, oh, I can introduce you to my publisher and I'll do your cover for you if you want to.
Okay.
So I went and pitched, and like that was my first time like pitching something. And they gave us a 4-issue series called We Will Bury You. That was our original idea. And it was it was like a zombie comic set in the 1920s.
So
very
cool.
fun. And then did the cover, and we got and yeah, it was just a really fun book that we got to do. And then from there I kind of like did more comics. I love the comic world. I'm still like a huge comic reader. I'm just a big fan of that medium. Yeah, I don't know, it's so fun. It's one of the only like places where you start something and you're like, I want it to look like this, and it actually looks like that. Whereas like a director, you're like, I want it to look like this, and it like looks like the you know, some version of that, but like it's like
the ghost of the idea a little bit. Yeah, it changes each time, like the writing, the version in your head, the written word, and then it keeps morphing, right?
Exactly.
So and then can you tell us a little bit, because you also are a podcaster,
and you started your podcast the same year we started our podcast, Horror Movie Survival Guide. We've been doing since 2017 as well.
Oh my god.
So hell yeah to long run and doing it.
Oh my gosh. It's funny. I don't like, in my head, it's not that long running, but I guess I
Same.
haven't done it. I know.
I'm always like, Julia, it's 2024. That means it's been 7 years this year.
We realized we've done like over 350 episodes, and that was like
we have to.
Yeah. Yes, it's such a wow. What a I do, but I do a book podcast, which is not what people expect. Like people are always like, what's your horror movie podcast? I'm like, no. I'm a big reader. I like reading, and not just comics, but I read all sorts of books. And oh, my dog just jumped behind me. But the dog wants to be on the podcast.
Hi, doggy.
And you want to come up?
What kind of stuff were you reading when you were young?
When I was young, so the dog.
Yay!
All right.
We love your heart. We love you.
Let's join. I was reading, well, when I was really young. I don't really remember like some mysteries and stuff. Like I liked the Hardy Boys when I was like a kid and like weird stuff. And then in high school, I started working at a library. That was my after school job.
Cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I still love libraries. I still get all my books from the library.
Library.
I do not pay for books, even though I do a book podcast. I am like,
if you do a book podcast, you got to go and just check them out and then give them back, or else it just ends up,
Yeah.
I love doing that for the movies we do. I rent a lot of them from the library too. So I get it.
I mean, the library has a great amount of, I rent a ton of, Hoopla is like where I watch all my movies from the library. Like, I mean, I can find is it Hoopla and
Canopy.
Oh, Canopy. Yeah. Actually, I think Best Friends Forever is on Canopy.
My movie's on Canopy too. My documentary Out of Print is on Canopy.
Mm-hmm. I love the library. I still love the library, but I started working there when I was like 16, I guess, and worked there until I graduated high school. And I read everything. I mean, I definitely read some horror stuff, but I also, that was around when Harry Potter was coming out, so I started reading that. And then I was really big into like sci-fi, like kind of mainstream, like Kurt Vonnegut style sci-fi. So
Nice.
like sort of like literary sci-fi. That was sort of my world at the time. And then kept reading. I've always been into sci-fi. Like I'm a big sci-fi reader. I'm always reading like some book about
Okay.
space and
So
robots.
are you into the classic stuff? It gets your Philip K. Dicks and your Isaac Asimovs and like that kind of
For sure. And
Arthur.
I read a lot of that stuff more in college. Now I'm like, well, now I'm graduated into like fairy smut. I don't know how I've gotten into that world, but like
Oh, this is the world I need to get into. This is
Can
what
you
I'm
give
talking
us?
about.
We will take the recommendations for the fairy smut because
yeah, listen, there's
the
a lot of
lady.
it. Like the
lady.
Sarah J. Maas stuff, like somehow I got like into that world, but I still read a lot of like the new sci-fi, and then I'll do literary fiction, and then I still read a lot of history because that was my major. I still like, I'm always
So your
reading
rabbit hole. I love it.
Yeah.
Are there any books that you would love to adapt?
Like a million, like I have a spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot. I've always said, I mean, there's several like comics I would love to adapt. I mean, some of them are huge. Like I'm a big fan of like the X-Men world. But some smaller ones as well. Like I've looked into a lot of the stuff so a lot of it's not happening. I just read this great like sci-fi book called The Husbands that I was like, oh, someone needs to make this. Is it me? Maybe it's me.
Oh.
I love Rachel Harrison. I've looked into trying to make some of her stuff as well. Like there's a lot of stuff out there that I think is like ready for adaptation. I think some of it, like, you know, like I loved Hyperion, right? Like that's like a classic sci-fi. I don't know if I'm the right person to adapt that. Like, I think that I would love to see it adapted, or maybe I wouldn't. Like, maybe it doesn't need to be adapted. Although one that I
Do
thought
it anyway if you can. You
right,
know?
exactly. One that I thought would never be good for adaptation was Wool, and they've made the Silo series. What are they calling it? Silo, the one on Apple. I watched it all. What was it
I
called?
don't know. I don't remember.
They just made it. So there are ones that like ended up being great, you know, adaptations. So I don't know. There's a ton of stuff that I would love to get my hands on. But
well, I am on the same boat. I mean, like this is the thing is like you have these wonderful books that and as a director and as someone who has a very cinematic look brain, you can see it so clearly in your head, and like that's kind of the joy of it, right? And also to have it be singular is but I think, you know, the things that you've chosen to do are all things that are collaborative things. And, you know, you mentioned women supporting women and really wanting to work with your friends. And I feel like this is why we do this show, is because we want to support women that we think are rad and are doing amazing things, and to further that and pay that forward and to say like, yes, please, because your movies are incredible. I mean, Torn Hearts, we haven't mentioned, we talked about really, because, you know, like a Katie Siegel, like that, just because for me, like just characters in one location is all I want in a movie. So like it's given
we
me
want
like
my dinner
everything.
with Andre like over and over again is what it is.
yeah.
But also like our dear Clark Wolf in that, and like you know,
Yes.
like I just it's just
Clark.
very cool.
Yeah.
You're very cool.
Oh, thanks. I was very lucky. Clark was like down that way. I was shooting in New Orleans. I was like, are you available to come be in a movie?
It's like, okay, be right there.
Yeah. Right.
How did you
That's all I
find
want from
that house?
That house is actually multiple houses. So one, that house is in the middle of a city, and we got the biggest green screen I've ever seen to like blot out the city. So that it's like in the middle. It's like literally like right near right in the middle of New Orleans. Like it's not us
movie magic, you guys. I love this.
Yeah. We shot the drive up like elsewhere. Like that's something, like we built that gate like out in the middle of nowhere. And then there were two houses like on a similar property, and like I thought one worked for some of it and one worked for the other part, so we just combined the two. And the first one, the main one, we painted everything on the inside. Like my production designer did a really great job of it was like, I want everything to be like look old. I want all the walls to be different colors, and then make it pink. Put a lot of pink in this house, and that's what he did. He did a great job.
But so fun to be able to just stress everything to really like make it look like it's brand new, and yet.
Yeah, I mean listen, there's a lot like doing indie stuff is great, and that is technically an independent movie, but it was Blumhouse, and so they, you have the budget to actually take a house and like go, I want these two houses and I'm gonna combine them. They're gonna look like one house, and I want to shoot like this whole, I'm gonna paint this room to look like a jewel box, and like you actually have like the resources to do that.
Living the dream. That's so cool. Hearing you talk about the shoestring thing you talked about at the beginning to this, that's a huge journey. So I want you to acknowledge that you've come a long way, baby, from Marshall, Texas. But still, paying homage and love for it. It sounds like through your work, which I think is really, really cool.
So we are a show that is working, as you know, with the George A. Romero Foundation. So a question we ask all of our guests is, how has George Romero made an impact on your life?
Oh my God. I mean, well, yeah. I feel like he's made an impact on all of our little horror lives. I mean, a movie I come back to all the time is Dawn of the Dead. That's a movie that I think about all the time. I mean, a lot of the do we have a name for that? They called the Dead movies? What are they called?
That's what I usually say. The Dead series. Yeah.
But I mean, Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I feel like it had something to say. I feel like it also is in a cool location. I love cool locations. Like I'm
like a cool hospital or a mansion like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have multiple movies that I've written that are set in malls because I just am so inspired by like a mall location, especially now, like when malls are sort of like a little
dying.
Meaningless. Yeah, I love that subreddit Dead Malls. Like I'm on there looking at Dead
Malls. We both are on there all the time.
Us too.
I had a movie that I was trying to make, and I went and looked at a bunch of Dead Malls, and they're so amazing to see in person. Like the ones that are just completely abandoned. And
oh my God,
anyway,
some of my favorite YouTubers are those people that go in those malls and just do the tours and the Dead Malls, and I love it. Yes,
that's amazing. So that movie alone had like really changed the way I thought about horror. It changed like just thinking about locations, but also thinking about like saying something bigger with like your horror movies. A movie about like, oh, this is what they did while they were alive. They were consumers. Like this is what you're going to do when you die. That has been something that's like always stuck with me.
Yeah. He's so good at that. Yeah. Have, the movie be on one level, this thing, and on the other level, like, oh no, he's saying,
no. Yeah.
He I feel like he's such a futurist. I feel like everything he said it never fades.
Yeah. I agree.
It feels more urgent every time I watch one of his films. So yeah.
My brother and I decided at one point when we were putting out one of our comics, I can't remember what it was. We made a little a mixtape, a compilation of songs of us singing about horror movies. It's somewhere. I don't know where it is. I'm not a great singer. He isn't either. But we made this little thing together, and it's definitely one on there for Night of the Living Dead, and I believe there's one on there for Dawn of the Dead too. So there's
my God. See, I need to hear the songs. I need to see the footage that you shot in like high school. Like these are the things
we want to unearth these treasures. It's pretty great.
Well, thank you so much. We are so delighted to talk to you, and I feel like we barely scratched the surface. I have so many more questions for you, but thank you for telling us about your journey and sharing it with us and supporting us as well. We really, really appreciate that.
Anything you want to plug? You want to tell the people where to find you?
Listen, my podcast comes out every Thursday. If you like books, Reading Glasses podcast, we're on Maximum Fun Network. And my short is playing around. There's some fun festivals coming up. But I don't know which ones to tell you. But look on my Instagram; it'll be on my Instagram, so I'll post about it. Yeah.
Okay, and you're just Brea Grant at Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. You are just so amazing. I love you so much. Thank you again for joining us today. Y'all can listen to our podcast, Horror Movie Survival Guide, anywhere you like to listen to podcasts. You can hear Julie and I take deep dives into different horror films every week and dissect how you can survive and become the final gal.
And I also have another podcast called Jodorowsky, all about Alejandro Jodorowsky, and a one about the Losers Club, which is a Stephen King podcast. So also check out the George Romero Foundation. We have some plugs for them. So Brea, we can put you in the waiting room if you don't mind, so you don't have to listen to us plug.
Thank you so much.
I'll listen.
Don't leave.
Tell me what's happening.
Oh, okay.
No,
then stay.
Stay in. I have to find them now. We're doing so good today. This is like, we're winning everything today. All the things. Hold on.
But the George Romero Foundation is doing a really good job of helping filmmakers and really supporting filmmakers. So they helped produce my Stephen King short film, I Know What You Need, and they're really doing a good job of pushing his legacy forward
through the fellowship program. So, and there's also the Salem Horror Fest is partnered with the George Romero Foundation to offer a full fellowship program designed to empower emerging filmmakers with the skills, connections, and inspiration to advance their careers and goals in telling authentic, innovative, and terrifying stories that offer catharsis for an audience on the edge. Through this collaboration, industry veterans help filmmakers like Jen Wexler and Alice Mayo, McKay, and directors of the 2023 films The Sacrifice Game and Satanic Panic, respectively. And McKay's film Sovam earned her a Salem Horror Fest Jury Award and the first Romero Fellowship.
So I'm actually going to the Salem Horror Fest this weekend, where I Know What You Need will be playing alongside other dollar babies that the Romero Foundation has helped to produce. So I'm very, very excited about that. So you can go there. There is a Romero showcase happening. They're doing a bunch of Romero's films playing there, including Dawn and Day. So they also have a podcast, which is collaborating with Bloody Disgusting for a scripted podcast series. So they have a new story every Tuesday, and you can catch up on their story wherever you listen to podcasts. And then if you just want to do a general donation, they are supporting independent filmmakers like myself. I am one of them, to carry on the tradition of crafting quality horror.
Socially conscious horror, because that's what George is so good at, like we were just talking about with Brea here. So we need your support to continue our mission. You're not just contributing to the cause, you're fueling the continuation of groundbreaking storytelling that challenges norms and sparks important conversations. So you can visit www.georgearomerofoundation.org to learn more about our initiatives and to donate. Thank you all so much for, joining us. Brea, thank you for being just amazing and just a dear heart and jumping in and on a very busy day. And
you can find us. We are online. We would love to talk to you. We will see you next time. We hope your days and nights are fantastic, Oracle.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.